Hello, Gaston County. Welcome to episode number 63 of Gaston's Great, a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long, and we are coming to you once again from the international headquarters of GSM Services right here in downtown Gastonia, as we look forward to having continued great discussions in the coming weeks and months. We seem to believe in discussing more of the reasons why Gaston's great. We have a very special episode today, or at least I'm calling it a very special episode. It's a little different format than we normally have. So we're going to talk about an upcoming event that's kind of near and dear to my heart and to the people in the room today, called Crowd Out Polio, which is an event that the Rotary Club of Gastonia puts on. And full disclosure, I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Gastonia, so pretty much that's why we're talking about that event. But we also have a special guest as well today. So we have Mark Hanna with us, who is a polio survivor, along with his daughter and fellow Rotarian, Katie Blackman, who is the executive director of Gaston Hospice. So if you want to go check out episode number 38, is an episode about Gaston Hospice. We also have Marcia Scheidemann with us, who is also a member of the Rotary Club of Gastonia and a Rotarian extraordinaire. She has got it going on when it comes to Rotary. So Mark, Katie, and Marcia, it's great to have you on, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to get right to it, and something that we do to try to start every episode is just, if you guys don't mind, maybe I'll start with you, Mark. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and anything you'd like to share, and then we'll ask Marcia and Katie to do the same thing.
All right, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Absolutely.
I'm a retired social studies teacher at the high school level, and I'm 74. I've been married for 52 years to the same person. And, father of two. Katie is one, and John, my son, is another, and I have 4 grandchildren, and that's kind of me.
Okay, very good. Marcia, what about you?
Well, I am also retired dietitian and nonprofit executive director. And member, as you said, of the Rotary Club of Gastonia. Have lived in North Carolina for only about 10 years. Okay. So retired here. I have one grown son who is in the Navy. So
very good. Katie, what about you, ma'am?
All right. Katie Blackman, director with Gaston Hospice and Palliative Care, and I am Mark Hanna's daughter, born and raised here in Gaston County, and also a Rotarian, and look forward to talking about this event.
All right, very good. Now, I would be remiss if I also didn't mention, I mentioned the Gaston Hospice episode, but actually our third episode we ever recorded was about the Rotary Club, specifically the Rotary Club of Gastonia. We had the president at the time of the club, and then the immediate past president. So again, there's 2 other episodes you listeners can go and check out, a little related to this episode. So, Mark, can you kind of maybe just tell us, if you can, what you're comfortable sharing about kind of your experience with polio, anything you're comfortable sharing, and then maybe I even go over to Katie after that to maybe she can add some insight into that experience, because we're specifically what we're talking about today.
I'm sure she can. I actually had the disease during the polio epidemic as an infant. I was born in April, but I believe I got sick somewhere around August.
Okay.
And about 4 months old, and don't remember much about the disease in that part. My earliest memories were my trips to the orthopedic hospital to see Dr. Roberts and Dr. Miller for follow-ups. Right. And they were 2 prominent, just top of the line in their field, and very renowned. One thing I remember about that is when I went into the orthopedic hospital, most of you have seen images of polio victims, and especially braces and iron lungs.
Yes.
And at the orthopedic hospital, there was a lot of that. I was told by my father that I was in a ward when I was admitted with a ward of 6 children, and I was the only one that survived.
Oh, wow.
That's kind of chilling when you think about it.
Sure is.
But the biggest thing I remember was when I walked in, seeing all the other people who were so much worse off than me. That made a real impact on me. what happened to me, I had muscle loss. I lost my muscle in my deltoid and tricep and rotator cuff, and so my shoulder I can't lift my arm above my waist basically anymore. But that is not apparent to anybody, who sees me. And being around people who struggle to be mobile really made an impact. And I didn't understand it as much then, of course, as I do now.
Right.
And one story my dad told me later also was that when he took me back for checkups and follow-ups, that we always went in a back door. And, of course, I don't remember that, but he said that it kind of embarrassed him to bring me in for a checkup in front of all the people with all the disabilities that were so more tragic than mine. And he was sort of embarrassed, to do
right.
that. So he took me in more discreetly, I think was the way he would say. Also remember Dr. Miller, who examined me, and he would stretch his palm out to me and tell me to take my right arm and push against it. And, of course, I would do that, and he would get angry with me, and he would fuss at me. And he said, "I told you to push, boy." And I would cry and push as hard as I could. And, it wasn't until later life that it occurred to me that all that was really clinical, that he was trying to make sure I push with my greatest effort.
Right.
He could evaluate my muscle strength accurately. So that was pretty hard to take at the time, and I didn't like him at all. But, we went back a lot, and
That's
maximum effort was what he was looking for. He didn't care if he made me cry. But, again, my disability was so unnoticeable that a lot of my friends today have no idea that I had polio. Every once in a while, I have to explain to them that I do. And somebody will ask me a question, "Well, you surely do that funny?" And I said, "Well, it's the only way I can get it done." But at about 40 years of age, post-polio syndrome began to affect me. And being a classroom teacher, I write right-handed and wrote on the board right-handed. And when post-polio syndrome hit me, I began to weaken significantly in my arm and shoulder area. And things I could do, I began not to be able to do. So I had to learn to write on the board left-handed.
Oh, wow.
Which made for some pretty awful writing. But, over time, I did okay. But, again, post-polio, my understanding is that it affected the more visibly stricken people more than it did me. I experienced a weakening, and my understanding is that a lot of the other survivors experienced a lot of pain with post-polio. And, again, they also began to weaken, and it was another kind of a traumatic thing for them that I experienced part of, but not to the depth that they did. And part of that is also I began to understand how lucky I was.
Right.
Because at the same time I could curse my condition, when I stepped back and analyzed everything, I was really lucky that I could function the way I could. And now it's a lot worse, but it's Katie and I talk every once in a while about how funny it is that you have to adapt what you do, and you have to learn how to do things. When I drive, I can't reach the radio. I can't reach the air conditioning, the heat, and all the controls that I have to do with my right hand. So I've had to learn to put my hand on my thigh and bounce it.
Oh,
and then
that's
boom over to the gear shift or whatever I'm doing, and things like that. They're inconvenient and they're aggravating sometimes, but then it's kind of really funny about how you adapt, how you do things differently. When I put on a jacket or a shirt or things like that, sometimes I have to sling my arm around, and people, if they looked at me, would say, "That's crazy looking."
Yeah.
But it's just, again, it's ways you adapt. And any person that has a physical ailment, would do the same thing.
Right.
And sometimes you do it unconsciously. It's just, I know Katie could probably, say a few things about, her growing up. We never talked about it.
Okay.
And
Was that intentional, or you just, there's just something that just didn't come up, or you didn't really want to?
wasn't much intent about it. It was just that it didn't matter.
Right.
And so we just, it's not that we avoided it, but when it was time to talk about it, of course, we'd mention it. But as far as, making an excuse or anything like that.
Okay. Anything you want to add to that with your experience as a
Reiterate that was just how he lived. He just adapted as it happened and didn't know until I was an adult looking back some of the things that he had gone through as the post-polio syndrome had gotten worse and how he'd adapted. And I just remember the first time I noticed how he would throw his hand up to get to the radio. And that's the first conscious moment where I think we had the conversation about what's going on here. And then, having to switch from, he always drove a manual, a straight drive. And when he had to switch to an automatic, and it was because of that. And I didn't, really put that together until we talked about it later.
That's interesting. A couple things. Well, we heard a lot there. One thing that I would, here it is 2022, and people my age, we just really didn't have to deal with that, right? I knew of it, right, because we had the polio vaccine when we were younger, and I did meet some individuals who either had you knew that had polio when they were younger or whatever, but it was just something that we just here in the U.S. anyway, we just don't deal with. And then I also think a lot of people don't realize how important the orthopedic hospital here was, and not just and how well known it was. And that's one of those things. It's kind of like some other examples, maybe like the Shield Museum. There's something we take for granted because it's here.
Right.
We don't realize how big of a deal that is regionally or even nationally.
It's kind of difficult for people like me to ride by and see it in disrepair and see it changing, because I never go by it without looking up and remembering.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. So it's such a, and to your point about adapting, I think my experience is that it is, the things we can adapt to is almost limitless. I mean, it's not, there's always limitations, but we do just kind of whatever's necessary, right, in our day, especially in our day-to-day lives. So, knowing that there may be somebody listening who has a family member, or maybe somebody obviously not with polio necessarily, but some kind of ailment or illness or their family, what would you tell somebody with your experience, knowing what you've experienced, kind of your words of encouragement, or how would you, say, this helped me get through it? Or it sounds like you just said, heck with it, I'm just going to live my life and not get on with it, right?
Well, that's kind of it. But I've never considered myself an optimist at all. I really don't know the words to describe. I'm not really a pessimist.
Realist. That's what.
A realist.
Well,
okay.
I kind of call it a pragmatist. That you approach those things with, this is what it is. Let's see what to do. And I knew it wasn't going to go away, and so I had to adapt. As a matter of fact, I considered myself lucky, and I played baseball as a child, not very good, but still I played baseball. I played and coached tennis for years, and just did things that I could do, and found things that I could do and enjoy. And I think that part, going back to what we said about paying attention to it, that came from Mom and Dad too. They didn't ignore it, but we just didn't talk about it. We just went about our business.
Sure.
And that's where I think if Mom had treated me like, oh, poor son, or poor
son,
I would have had a whole different attitude. And my father the same way. We just never.
What's the phrase that now? That victim mentality, right? That can be easy. That can easily happen because everything's relative, right, to your own situation.
Yeah, and if I could, tell somebody with a disability, that just go about living and loving, and just attack life head on.
All right, so normally I end the podcast with some type of quote or something. We may just have had it right there. I have to snip that one out of the podcast. That was really good. So, so maybe listen out there. So why are we talking about polio today? Why are we talking about this topic? Why do I have Rotarians here, and a gentleman who is a polio survivor? So I'm going to kind of maybe shift real quick to Marcia, the Rotarian extraordinaire. And I know a little bit enough about Rotary and polio to be dangerous. But Marcia, kind of, can you tell us about Rotary's maybe general involvement in polio eradication? How some of that came about, and then specifically, the event that our club has coming up, and just what are we trying to accomplish with that?
Sure. I will initially just take a minute. I'm 3 years younger than you are, Mark, and my recollection is taking the sugar cube. I remember lining up at school and receiving that sugar cube.
And we did too, just a little late.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah,
but anyway, that's my recollection of polio as a child. But Rotary's involvement in polio is massive. It began back in 1979 when we actually went to the Philippines and immunized 6 million children, and has grown exponentially since then, with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation getting involved in the early 2000s, which has really given us an opportunity to grow the funds. They were willing to provide a 2-to-1 match. So every dollar that we donated to the effort, they donated 2 in return. So over the years, we have actually contributed over $2 billion to the eradication of polio. And oh, by the way, Bill Gates insisted that Rotary be part of the picture when he was asked
to be clear, that's Rotary, the Rotary Foundation, and Rotary broadly in the world, not the Rotary Club of Gastonia giving $2 billion.
Well, that's correct. But
we've been part of that, though.
We've been part of it.
We sure have.
But the reason that Bill Gates was so insistent on Rotary being part of that whole effort was that we were the boots on the ground.
Right.
We actually provided the infrastructure. And so over $2 billion, countless volunteer hours. We have Rotarians that go overseas and give children the vaccine. And over 2.5 billion children have been vaccinated in our efforts. So we try to keep that momentum going every year in October. Most Rotary clubs do some kind of event, and the Rotary Club of Gastonia 2 years ago came up with an event that we call Crowd Out Polio because of being geographically here in Gastonia. We have, as you said, Mark, the orthopedic hospital in our history, but we also have Crowder's Mountain. So we wanted people to have an opportunity to be active, to take advantage of the natural resource of Crowder's Mountain, and so they can register to walk, hike, or run, or crawl, however they want to do it, one of the paths at Crowder's Mountain anytime after the 8th of October. And then we have a culminating event on Saturday the 22nd just to celebrate. The other way that people can contribute to the effort is just through a simple donation. You can go on our website, crowdoutpolio.com, and just donate to the effort. Or companies can provide some sponsorship. So there are 3 different ways to contribute to it.
So we'll make sure before we finish, the last thing we'll talk about is reiterate the website and how we can get, others can get involved and make sure that that's clear. And so, Marcia just shared a lot. One question I get asked occasionally, I happen to be the club trainer for our club, so I'm getting new members through our orientation program. And a question I'm asked occasionally is, well, why does it keep taking so much money? We basically, I think wild polio, and Marcia, you may know better than me, I think it's down to 2 countries consistently. Now, there are occasional, for lack of a better term, occasional breakout or something here because of travel, and there can be small pockets, but that's typically not wild polio. That's just happening. But seems like it's Pakistan and Afghanistan. No,
that's correct.
Correct. And
That's
Pakistan
correct.
is very close, if I remember correctly, with very few cases each year. When I joined our club, we still had Nigeria and India were still on the list. And that's been 21 years ago now, how long I've been in Rotary. And those have been taken off the list. So a lot of work has been done, but there's still children being born all over the world, right? That in some areas that are hard to access. So that is why that the money being raised now still needs to be done year to year, so we can get to those children and prevent, because again, the goal is polio eradication. When Rotary, and it's not just Rotary, it's UNICEF originally, I think, was involved in the World Health Organization. But Rotary was really the catalyst, and because we're in Rotary, that's what we're going to focus on and talk about today. So it'd be nice if we didn't have to have this event, right? And Rotary was no. You all right, Amy? You throwing things around over there in the middle of our podcast? All right. Okay, just checking. So, and so many of the podcasts we've had, that is kind of the ultimate goal would be not to have these organizations any longer. So, is this you're so heavily involved with it? Do you anticipate this being an ongoing event? And this is year number 3, and it seems to be gaining momentum every year. And looking ahead, what do you see for the event?
It is gaining momentum. We are increasing the goal that we want to raise each year, and we have risen to the occasion, at least in the first 2 years.
Right.
Hopefully we will this year as well. As you said, it's an ongoing issue internationally.
Right.
So that the 2 countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan, it is still endemic in those countries. So that children being born, we have to make a really incredible effort to vaccinate them, because there are cultural barriers and there are political barriers.
Yep.
And until we don't take the polio vaccine anymore in our country, because we have eradicated it.
Right.
So we don't need to, unless it comes back, which it could.
Yes.
It's only we like to say it's only an airplane ride away.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, matter of fact, just within the past few weeks, I read something about New York, or somewhere in New York there was a small.
That's correct.
And not being an expert on it, I don't remember how you would describe it, but yeah, there was something in the headlines with a few cases here. But I think it was from travel or something related to that.
There was a case in Rockland County, New York, which is right outside the city, in an unvaccinated community.
Gotcha.
This
Thank you.
gentleman had contracted it overseas, brought it back home.
Gotcha.
And now they're testing the water, and they're finding the wild virus in the water.
Nice.
So that's the concern.
Good. Great. So, something we talk about, this is Gaston podcast, it's called Gaston's Great, right? So we're trying to focus on the good things happening around here. So why, this is maybe a question for all of you, but maybe start with you, Marcia, because you're so heavily involved with the event. I mean, why would you say Gaston County specifically is better? Because, we have both our Rotary Club and we're doing this event here in Gaston County.
Well, outside the history of Gaston County being involved in polio treatment or eradication, clearly we want Gastonians to take advantage of the natural resources at their disposal, like Crowder's Mountain. So it's just a good way to encourage people to get outside, to participate in something healthy. And enjoy their community.
Are there any other organizations, I'm trying to think, in the last 10 or 15 years that even talk about polio any longer? Or is Rotary, at least here in America, is that pretty much it? Or
Rotary has certainly taken the lead. There is an international initiative which includes a lot of different organizations.
Right.
Clearly, the United Nations is concerned and interested, but Rotary has really taken the lead, probably because of the Gates Foundation.
Sure. Sure. So before we move on to some really important questions, anything I haven't asked? This is for all three of you. Mark or Marcia or Katie, anything I haven't asked? Anything that you'd like to share? Any related to the event, to polio in general, or anything else we've got going on? There may not be. You guys have really covered it very well, and it's a really impactful story, Mr. Hanna.
I can't think of anything.
Okay.
That
I will say that for those who don't think that polio is an issue, and it's not in our particular country, Rotary International and the Rotary Foundation, their initiative is called Polio Plus.
Right.
So there are other communicable diseases
Right.
which are addressed, clean water, Ebola, because we have the infrastructure internationally.
Yeah, that's a great point. And
Yeah.
specifically the Polio Plus too is it's that, but it's also just the inoculation itself includes
Diphtheria and
tuberculosis maybe. There's
Exactly.
multiple things that are included in that, and I have that list when I go through orientation. And that's something I specifically you touch on for new Rotarians. So we're going to call this. We changed the name of this little round of questions, and you're not going to get out of this, Katie. By the way, we're going to call this the Crowd Out Polio Speed Round of Questions. All right. And we're going to start with you, Katie, because you're trying to hide down there on the other end without being involved. So, Katie, what is your favorite Tony's ice cream flavor?
Chocolate.
Marcia? Have you been to Tony's?
I went to Tony's yesterday
Just
to
for-
prepare for today. I want to, full disclosure, yes,
right.
I went to Tony's yesterday, and I had chocolate peanut butter ripple.
Oh, okay. So you've been once, and that's the only answer you can give. That's the
the
only
only
proof.
answer.
That's the only proof that you have at
That's
this
right.
point. Mark?
black cherry with a close second, butter pecan.
Oh wow. Okay, so when we had the GBA on, the Gas Business Association on, many episodes ago, we had a live taste testing of Tony's ice cream, and black cherry was one, grape and something else. I don't remember. Oh, it was lemon, because I was like lemon, but the second piece of that, Mark, is my dad's favorite was butter pecan.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
Sure,
I mean,
that's good.
he absolutely loved that. Stick with you, Mark. Are you Sundrop or Cheerwine?
Definitely Sundrop.
Okay.
Either.
Marcia we're going to cut her mic off here in a minute because she's only been to Tony's once, and she's never had Sundrop or Cheerwine. So she's only been here for 10 years or so, we'll give her a break.
I'll bring you some at next week.
Okay, thanks.
Sundrop.
Sundrop. All right. So, Katie, stay with you. Favorite local restaurant?
Black's Barbecue.
Ah, very good.
Webb's Kitchen.
Webb's Custom Kitchen.
Oh, definitely. I think Hickory Tavern.
Ah, Hickory Tavern, very good. There's a lot of good sports there too. So we're going to cheat here. The favorite outdoor activity in Gaston County, we can't say hiking Crowder's Mountain because we're talking about Crowd Out Polio. We're going to assume that's everybody's favorite activity. But Mark, how about you? Favorite outdoor activity or favorite park or something you might do here?
Well, it's kind of benign, but my favorite time to be outdoors is my sister lives on Lake Wiley.
Oh, okay.
When we go down and pontoon,
Oh, that's
the
fantastic.
lake and
Yeah.
everything, and it's just very relaxing, very peaceful.
Very good. I appreciate that. That's good. Marcia?
My husband and I have in the past hiked around the Rankin Lake.
Oh, Rankin Lake's really
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, really pretty.
Not too far from here either. Really nice spot. Katie?
I'd have to agree with Lake Wiley, but if I had to choose a second, it's taking the kids to the pool at Limburger Park.
Oh, okay.
Have a good
Cool.
time there.
Yeah, so my dad actually grew up on Avon Street, which is at the time right across from the baseball field, and of course the house isn't there any longer. And I grew up on Fern Forest Drive, and my grandmother lived on 4th Street, so we kind of had Limburger Park surrounded. and I grew up. I grew up on going to Limburger Park quite a bit.
And we grew up on 6th Street,
Oh yeah,
which is
very
right above Avon.
yeah, very close, very close. So, Katie, we want to stick with you, and this is my question that I get to ask every episode, and I don't really care what anybody thinks about it. But, Katie, UNC Duke or NC State?
I'm going to have to go with NC State for my dad on that one.
Give us something. All right, very good. All right, Marcia.
Well, being a Pennsylvania girl, I don't have a whole lot of affinity for North Carolina schools, but I'm very involved in cooperative extension, and NC State is the land grant, so I've got to go with NC State.
And you have red on in honor of
right.
NC State today, correct? All right. I'm going to assume the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyway. Mark?
I went to NC State, and my loyalty is still there.
I don't even know what to do. We've never had all three guests, every guest say NC State. I mean,
what a great day.
Maybe we're going to retire the podcast completely after this episode. Yeah, I'm an NC State grad myself, Mark. So, this is the best episode ever. All right, Mark. You've shared a lot already, so maybe this might be a tough one. But what is something very few people know about you?
I really don't know, but a lot of people don't know that I'm an avid bridge player.
Oh yeah, okay.
That I started when I was in college and lost my bridge game when I worked and had family. But after retirement, have picked it back up.
Oh, well, good for you.
I'm active around and really enjoy it.
Yeah, I spent many a time at my friends and my parents' houses doing whatever while they were playing bridge with their friends. Marcia, what about you?
Well, as I said, I'm a Pennsylvania girl. I grew up in Pittsburgh, but I was born in Philadelphia, and not very many people know.
Okay. So, I mean, are you a sports fan at all, or?
Steelers.
So, okay. So, no Eagles, but Steelers. Hockey? Yep. Penguins as well, or you don't care about hockey?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'm not sure what to think about that. We're going to move on to Katie.
Probably that I'm an extreme introvert.
Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks.
Welcome. All right, Katie, stick with you. Is there a book or something you would recommend, or a blog or article you follow that our listeners might enjoy?
One of the best books I've read recently is Where the Crawdad Sings. It's pretty popular right now, but I'll have to go with the trend.
All right, very good. I've heard that, but I have to admit that's not on my list. But
that's what I just finished reading as well. Yep.
All right. So they cheated and they said the same thing, Mark. So you got to say something different if there's something.
Well, I've got to where I read a lot, but one of the books that I look back on as one of my best reads ever is called Wilmington's Lie. It's by David Zucchino, and it chronicles the story of the 1898 Wilmington riots, and it was just so informative and so eye-opening.
Okay.
That I actually bought 4 copies and sent it to some friends.
Oh, well, good. Yeah.
And one friend that lives out of town, and I told him that every native North Carolinian needs to have read that book because it's such a strong statement about our state history.
Well, appreciate that. I'm always reading something, and so I'll add that to my list. I think my wife has that the book.
You're not going to add ours to your list.
That's where I was going. That's where I was going. I don't have to add it to the list because it's already in my house somewhere, and I'm sure I will find it and glance at it sometime. So, Mark, I'll stick with you on this next question first. So, again, this is a podcast where we try to focus on Gaston County. So, besides Rotary Club of Gastonia, the Crowd Out Polio event, the things we've talked about today, why would you say Gaston County is such a great place?
Well, for me, it's mostly about, when I think about that, it's mostly about family because, I was born and raised here. My family was born and raised here. My father, Mac, actually worked almost his whole life right across the street from here at the city of Gastonia. He retired as a superintendent of the electric department. And, through those years, I got to know a lot of people who worked behind the scenes and who did so much to make Gaston work for everybody. And I just think that in the final analysis, Gaston is a very tight community, and the little municipalities around Gastonia that make it as great. I just always saw Gaston County as a close place.
Appreciate that. I agree. We'll even slide in possibly a little Lincoln County as well there, Marcia, but how would you answer that question?
Well, as you know, I live in Lincoln County, so my
Right.
experience with Gaston County has been my friends at Rotary. And I would say that their passion for their community is palpable. So it's very attractive.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, if I haven't learned anything in the past 63 episodes of this now, is that exact point. We have met so many wonderful individuals who care deeply and are doing good work here in our community. Katie, how would you answer that question?
I'd have to say family as well. That was what keeps me
Okay.
here, and it's what brought me back. It's one of those I swore I would never be back, and here I am, and I'm enjoying it. I've got family right next door, and friends, and friends that are family. So.
Well, very good. All right, I think I say this every episode as well. This is my favorite question, and I'll start with you, Katie. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Be kind to yourself and be patient.
Okay, that's very good. When I was 20, patience was a foreign concept for sure.
I would say be authentic.
Okay.
Don't be afraid of who you are, because I sure was.
Try to make other people
Yeah.
worry about what other people thought, and yeah. Oh boy, Mark.
Well, first of all, I love the question. I think about this more often than probably people would ever think I would. But I know kind of relating to this question, an article I read a couple of years ago, North Carolina State assistant football coach published a letter that he wrote to his 16-year-old self or 14-year-old self or something, and it was so powerful and so.
Yeah, that was I know I've read it. I know exactly what you're talking about. I can't remember his name, but I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah.
He was a defensive backs coach, and
Yeah.
he was just an incredible human being. And he's no longer there. But I think I would like to tell my 20-year-old self to be more intentional about the acts that you do, the plans that you make, and I feel like sometimes we let life happen to us, and I have kind of looked back and thought that I reacted to life more than I channeled my life.
Understood.
And so I would say be more intentional in raising your children, in your education, your vision of what you want, your goals. I was never goal oriented, and I think I should have been more, but have a vision for your life.
Yeah, that question, I like the question for a lot of reasons. One of them is when we started this podcast, my children, my oldest, were 22 and 20. So I'm thinking, boy, I messed them up. Here it is. It's too late, but I still got a 16-year-old that maybe we can get into that 20-year-old self and help them. But that's a terrific answer, and three terrific answers, because I'm afraid some of that perspective just requires age and experience. I'm afraid that it's almost impossible to have that real perspective when you're 20. Because I sure didn't. And I think every time I ask that question, we've had so many terrific, answers and perspectives on that. And every single time I say, no, I didn't know that either. No, I didn't think that either. Every single answer. So, guys, this has really been good. This is going to, our listeners are really going to enjoy hearing about this, both the event and your story. So before we finish up, so obviously the main point is to make sure our listeners are aware of this event, how they can help, how they can donate. So can you maybe just last thing, Marcia, just share again the website, the day of the event, anything. Listen, let's recruit some Rotarians while we're at it. Anything we can do here to help as this continues to be an international, initiative that Rotary has.
Well, we are giving people the option of walking, hiking, or climbing Crowder's Mountain anytime between October 8th and the 22nd at their leisure. And you go to the website, crowdoutpolio.com, and register to walk, and then you receive a T-shirt and a little bracelet and take a picture of yourself walking, post it on Facebook, and you can enter a contest.
So isn't there, don't we always have a Facebook page as well for Crowd Out Polio?
We do.
Okay.
And Crowd Out Polio.
So I guess, help me out, digital people, you would tag that, take a picture and post it on that site, or do you tag yourself, tag that website? I mean, that Facebook page? How do you do that?
You can post it on the site.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not helping me over here, people. All right, you don't have microphones, so nobody can hear you. So we'll have to put it in the show notes. Can we put it in the show notes? Yeah. Well, episode is winding down slowly. So I'm going to do this because I wasn't going to do this because Mark's words were so powerful, but it kind of, I'm reading it kind of relates, I think. I do a book recommendation every week as well, and it's the book I just finished, actually. It's by a gentleman named Ryan Holiday, and it's called Ego is the Enemy. And it's just, we're big here at GSM. We try hard to work with humility and empathy and compassion, and boy, ego gets in the way of that. And I think it's a good read if you're someone who's kind of looking to learn about that. And my quote this week is specifically on humility, and it comes from Ralph Waldo Emerson. And he said, "In my walks, every man I meet is my superior in some way, and in that I learn from him." So my experience, and it sure wasn't at 20, I didn't realize this, but at 52, I have come to learn that every interaction that I have with someone, especially with somebody I've met for the first time, I can learn something from him, from that individual. And I sure have today. I sure have the last 63 episodes of doing these podcasts. So again, to our listeners out there, can't thank you enough for taking the time to listen to today's episode and all of our episodes. Please spread the word if you can about the podcast, and please don't hesitate to contact us here at our email address, which is podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We're always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at our website, gastonsgreat.com, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And please follow us on all of our social media platforms as well. And apparently, according to our newest person on the podcast, Naomi, she says that if we give us good ratings, that we'll get noticed more. Is that correct, Naomi? Yes? Okay. Thanks again to Mark, Katie, and Marcia for being our guests today. Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you by Amy Anderson from GSM Services and edited here locally by the Sumner Group. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.